So, top table, we have William Lowe playing Turbo Depths versus Joe Brennan on Miracles. We have Lucas Michaels on Dredge playing against Brennan McCarley on Green Black Tron. And then here we have Jeremy Henry versus Craig Krempels. Turn 1, Bomat Courier from Craig Krempels. It's off Spire Bluff Canal. Now, in the main, there are actually no blue cards in this deck.
Yep, there's going to be some negates in the sideboard. For blue sources, it's these 4 canals and 4 ether hubs. And if you transform Path of Metal, it becomes a blue source.
Now, traditionally, Black-Green Constrictor actually has a lot of game against mono-red in this matchup. Sultai splashes for blue cards. I don't think I really care about the blue cards here. Do you still think Constrictor's favored?
Yeah, you do have these larger creatures that does help, and there's nothing that really gets cleaned up by Path of Metal, and Path of Metal doesn't have the closing speed to compete with large creatures. I suppose the best case scenario for Krempels, if you can use a Path of Metal, can clean up these Glint Sleeve Siphoners. But in general, I do like just having the larger creatures against these red aggressive decks.
Now, we are going to go ahead and see Daring Buccaneer. That's the 1/1, 2/2 for 1 from Craig. He did not have a second land, and that's because Buccaneer got met with a Fatal Push. Then Jeremy Henry untaps and makes Winding Constrictor.
And Krempels has drawn a second land here. He's drawn a Path of Metal, but that's Basic Mountain. He won't be able to cast that, at least for the immediate future.
Here's another Bomat Courier. Swings both, gets 2 more cards. It looks like Craig wants to pitch his hand.
I think he's actually just going to 2-for-1 himself. He has a shock.
Ooh, okay, so he shocks the Constrictor, and the Bomat Courier with 3 cards under it is traded away.
And if you can set up to keep a clear battlefield for a couple turns, get more cards into this Courier, you can gas back up.
Well, and this is why the matchup can be pretty hard for the red deck, is that the fact that Constrictor just has 2 3s for 2 and Fatal Pushes, that's a really good recipe for beating the red deck.
Yeah, you want to draw some 3 damage spells, but for Krempels' build, he has 4 Lightning Strike. He doesn't have any Abrade. He had to cut that one to make room for the Path of Metal.
Yeah, another Constrictor for Jeremy to replace the one that was removed. It looks like he does have Fatal Push in his hand as well.
Yeah, pretty good setup for Jeremy so far.
Yeah, I agree. He also has Rishkar as a follow-up on the next turn.
Looks like Craig has picked up a second Path of Metal. That's not going to play. On the plus side, it does look like his team has solid matchups in the other formats.
Yeah, Tron versus Dredge, especially, you look at that, a lot of times you'll see a Tron player main deck Relic of Progenitus, so that's pretty good. Miracles, Turbo Depths. You can see that one going both ways.
Yeah, that's certainly true. You force some counterplay with how good a lot of your cards are against Merit Lage token. But yeah, Turbo Depths certainly does have play there. Sylvan Safekeeper we saw on camera earlier in the tournament doing some work in a matchup like that.
Fatal Push is cast. Jeremy just wants to make sure he spends that mana. Shoots down the Bomat Courier. Now, note, this is this is not an exact pairing. Right now, the team of Krempels is 9, 1, and 1. They're sitting on 28 match points. Jeremy Henry's team is 9 and 2. They actually have 2 losses.
Okay. And for Henry, picked up a Rishkar Pima Renegade. So he's got a 4/4 Rishkar and a 4/5 Winding Constrictor, and Krempels draws a Mountain, so he's just stuck with 2 Path of Metals in hand. They don't come close to dealing with either of these creatures. I think you're going to see Henry clean up here pretty quickly.
Yeah, a swing across for 8. Craig does not have a block. Not a good one, at least. And we see a blue card main here. Is that a Spell Pierce?
Spell Pierce,
yeah. Hey, there's a desert here. There's a Hash Up Oasis from Jeremy Henry.
You be quiet.
Maybe he'll activate it.
One can dream.
That's not even going to happen. Craig picks up the cards. So game 1 goes to the Snakes. The Sultai Constrictor deck gets the first game win here. They're going to get ready for sideboards. Maybe we'll see some Jeskai, not just some mono red out of Craig. We'll see in just a second when we come back with game number 2. So Craig Krempels gets ready for game number 2 here. Game 1 was not able to get off the ground. The draw of multiple 2-3s for 2 and multiple fatal pushes is going to be hard for him to beat regardless of his 7.
Certainly with the hand of multiple shocks.
Yeah. So when we look at the sideboards, let's look at Craig Krempels' first.
Yes, we have 3 copies of Abrade, 3 Negate. That's your blue splash there. 2 Chandra's Defeat, 2 Chandra Torch of Defiance, 2 Glorybringer, 2 Scavenger Grounds, and a Karizev's Expertise. Karizev's Expertise is actually pretty interesting in this matchup. There's going to be some windows where you can just grab a creature and swing across for lethal with that threaten effect. The cards that are pretty good here are the 3 Abrades. That makes the Winding Constrictor draws more manageable. And then things like Chandra and Glorybringer can be used to keep up with the larger creatures in the matchup.
So you know that Craig's playing a Pirates deck. How about Jeremy? You think he's going to board in these Death Gorge Scavengers?
I mean, they're good.
All right. We might I mean, it's an Ixalan. It's one of them pirate dinosaurs. Oh, boo. Boo. Okay, now it's just a dinosaur.
I mean, pirates don't say or. Death Guard Scavenger.
I always like the flavor was the captain's hook, the equipment that if you give anything a hook, it becomes a dinosaur. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a rare out of Rivals.
It becomes a dinosaur?
No, it becomes a pirate. A pirate. So the dinosaur could become a pirate. If you put a hook on anything, it's a pirate.
That makes sense.
So I was like this picture of a dinosaur walking around with one hook on a hand and an eye patch.
Yeah.
All right, so they're going to go ready for game 2. We recognize we have an audio issue right now, so we are going to go off air briefly as we restart the stream. We'll hold the players here, and then we'll get ready for game number 2. Join us in a second. All right, thank you for those of you joining us again. We are now back here. We believe we have our audio issues sorted out. So Craig Krempels, in game 2, we get here, has appeared to even things up. A Ravenous Chupacabra from Jeremy Henry looked like it might stabilize him. However, Craig, with the card Path of Metal, again, was able to falter his way through defense this one turn and actually transform it into the land. Now, the land can tap to deal 2 damage per turn, and with Jeremy at 4, that might just be good enough.
Yep, Craig was able to get in some damage. He previously had a Glorybringer. That was the target for our Chupacabra. And then the Path of Metal came down the following turn. Craig was able to get in some chip shots. Now he has the flip Path of Metal. That's just 2 activations. That's going to clean up this game here. So for Jeremy, he's going to make his attack. It's reasonable. Craig still at 16, though. And all Craig has to do is activate twice here. It's going to be 4 damage. It's going to close the game out.
So end step there, tap. It's got Jeremy down to 3.
3 was incorrect.
2. Yeah, 2 and then 2 more. Okay, so Craig Krempels does even up game 2. I know we weren't able to see too much of that. They are going to go ahead and shuffle to game 3. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and look over at the legacy match as those players get ready. We're going to bring you, just do a look in here, and then we'll bring you back to the standard match. Across the table, we look, Lucas Michaels on Dredge did get game 1 on the modern tables. And over in legacy, we have William Lowe and Joe Brennan. 6 and 7 are the life points.
You see a Jerry Thompson token there. That's a Merit Lage.
Yeah, and some Snapcasters on Joe Brennan's side. Looking like Unexpectedly Absent is going to shoot for the Merit Lage.
It's like a crop rotation in response.
Okay.
I know it's crop rotation because that's an image on the weekly ad. That's the first time I saw this art.
Hardcast Force of will counter crop rotation. Now will Merit Lage. He's going to try to crop rotate again. He's trying to get the Sajiri step to protect his 2020. Does Joe have checks for counterbalance does not hit, fetches. This looks to be the deciding interaction of the game.
Yes.
A lot of cards in Brennan's hand.
Yeah, I think there's a Swords to Plowshares.
Okay. And another Force of Will. So Joe Brennan on Miracles does survive the 2020. And one of the things I've been really impressed with the Turbo Depths is that one Sajiri step just allows these crop rotations to be so powerful. William had, for that late in the game against Miracles, William had a ton of interaction.
Yeah, he did have a shot there, but Brennan was able to close. And he did have Swords to Plowshares backup, but the reason you saw him fight so aggressively over that rotation was because he had already gotten William down to a low life total, and those Snapcaster Mage can close from 6 a lot easier than 26.
All right, so Jeremy Henry and Craig Krempels, we started talking about the sideboards, and we got through Craig's sideboard. Now, Jeremy has lost a sideboarded game. We're going to go back and look at what he has. Deathguard Scavengers, 3 of them. 3 Negates, 2 Hostage Taker, and I believe we saw those boarded in. 2 Duress, 2 Appetite for the Unnatural, a Lifecrafter's Bestiary, a Gonti, and a Lost Legacy.
Yeah, so the Deathguard Scavenger, the Hostage Taker, those are the kind of reasonable cards. They play a kind of an attrition game, gain some life, or try to turn the tide on the battlefield. And then the Appetite for the Unnatural is reasonable. You can go for either Path of Metal before it transforms or Bomat Courier.
Yeah, I was wondering about Path of Metal. So every time Craig has transformed the card, it's looked phenomenal. Now, my concern would be, also, every time Craig has cast the card, he has transformed it immediately on that turn. So if Appetite for the Natural, yes, could in theory answer it, but I don't know if Jeremy actually will ever get the window to cast it.
Yeah, it's dicey. Bringing in both, you can certainly end up in a position where it feels like you mulligan to 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to have you play your 3-drop, have an Appetite in your hand, then your opponent casts Path of Metal, transforms it, gets the land, and you say, man.
And just due to mana efficiency, you'd probably more likely reach for a Naturalize.
Yeah, he doesn't have those,
right.
but yeah, you're right. That would be better.
He's registered Appetite. You want it likely Mardu vehicles is the reason.
But Deathguard Scavenger should be great. I don't see him reaching for Negate here.
No,
same reasons.
Not a great Negate matchup. Craig's deck is mostly creatures.
Game 3 will put Jeremy on the play. Both of these decks on the more aggressive end of things. A lot of times that gives Jeremy the advantage. He's slightly slower.
Right, yeah, he's closer to a mid-range deck.
Yeah. Looks like both players have kept. Remember, right now the team of Brennan, McCarley, and Krempels, they're in 3rd. Lowe, Michaels, and Henry, they're tied for 4th. They're in the 9 and 2 bracket. Starting out on Fetid Pools for Jeremy Henry. Bomat Courier for Krempels. Now with Attune with Aether banned, there's not too much 1-mana play for the Siltec Constrictor deck outside of Fatal Push.
Yeah, having your land enter the battlefield tapped on turn 1, not terribly significant.
Hash Up Oasis. Ryan, I heard in Game 2 he activated a Hash Up Oasis. I'm pretty sure it happened.
I'm so off it.
Wouldn't count. It's really a shame.
Hey, it would count. It just wouldn't matter.
Bomat Courier for Craig swings in and can put a 2nd card.
Looks like we have a Kari Zev follow-up. This is kind of the best 1-2 sequence that a red aggressive deck can present right now.
Yeah, and it looks like Jeremy has an Essence Scatter ready for it. He has 1 Essence Scatter and 2 Spell Pierce in his deck. I'm a little surprised to see Spell Pierce still in. He did just lose to a Path of Metal, so that part makes sense, but I'm not sure he can convert on that card.
Yeah, sometimes you could catch a Lightning Strike. For your turn 3 Winding Constrictor, that can be relevant.
Yeah, okay, that's good. If you can play Winding Constrictor and then leave up Spell Pierce, you can sell me on that play. So
later the game goes, though, it does look like a dud.
Essence Scatter does hit the 1/3 Pirate. For Henry, Servant of the Conduit is going to be the play. Brings him up to 3 energy.
Actually uses the energy instead of paying a life on the Oasis.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me go over to Krempels. This 2/2 does pose a challenge to his Bomat Courier. Can't just free swing it. See if that Spell Pierce protects here. 3rd land's Inspiring Vantage from Krempels. He's got another option that looks pretty good here. On-Crop Crasher could exert and swing through. I don't mind that. It gets another card under the Bomat Courier, and that's getting to the point where I'd really like to sacrifice it.
Craig does have a good mix of cards in hand. This might be a turn where you just don't attack and only attack with the Crasher. Yeah, he's going for the more aggressive line.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to exert no blocks on the Servant. 3rd card under Bomat Courier. Swings for 4. Jeremy will go to 14. No play for on the Spell Pierce. But there is a Fatal Push in Jeremy's hand, so he'll be at 15, and those 3 cards are gone. And that's a big win for Henry. See if he can follow up. Looks like Drew Ravenous Chupacabra for the turn. That seems great.
Clean up the Crasher here. This is a game state that would be a lot worse for Craig in Game 1, where he doesn't have things like Glorybringer and Chandra in his deck.
Yeah, it looks like Henry is missing the 4th land. So If he wants to make Chupacabra here, he'll have to tap Servant to the Conduit, take down Spell Pierce.
That's fine.
He's got Rishkar in hand as well, and I think we might see him just go for that play instead. It'll set him up with more mana for next turn as well.
Given that the Crasher's not untapping, Chupacabra on this turn, not huge.
And Jeremy, you see him spending another energy here on Aether Hub. He's really being careful with his life total not to use that Hash Up Oasis ever to make green mana.
I like it. And it's not like he has some huge energy payoff card that he's building up to anyway. It's mostly just generating mana.
Hazoret is going to be the play from Craig. Now, that is not able to attack or block just yet. There are 3 cards in hand for Craig.
Gotta figure it'll be able to attack next turn. Land drop 2 spells, something very possible with this Jeskai aggressive deck. Let me go over to Henry here. Chupacabra cannot take down Hazoret, but you kind of want to deal with the on-crop Crasher now that the Hazoret is on the battlefield. Especially because it's actually going to be able to untap and attack next turn. Bit more mana available for Henry. Untapping with this Rishkar here. He picked up a 4th land, but it will enter the battlefield tapped. It's a Blooming Marsh, I believe.
Either that or Foul Orchard, but they're going to play exactly the same.
Right, yeah. When you get to your 4th land, they're pretty much the same.
But Jeremy does not have a clean answer to Hazoret, so at some point he needs to just race the card. And that's not easy. Does he have any Vraska's Contempts?
There's 2 in the main, and that's going to be it.
Okay.
He has 2 Hostage Takers in the sideboard.
Right. And with the Spell Pierce, well, I don't know. I was going to say he could protect it. I'm not sold on the Spell Pierce, Ryan.
Yeah, it's getting worse all the time.
Rishkar will attack in for 3. Jeremy, however, leaves back his other creature. Needs to make black mana here. He'll use Ravenous Chupacabra. Shoots down the on-crop Crasher. Plays Blooming Marsh. Says go. 2 cards in hand. One of them is Spell Pierce. Craig draws up to 4, and actually he's got a lot of lands. We'll see if he can get enough of them out of his hand to make Hazoret work.
Yeah, land was a poor draw there.
Yeah.
Very likely that he has a combination of 2 spells he can cast for 5 mana. Some question as to whether or not he has spells that he wants to cast this turn. The old pre-combat Rigging Runner.
Sure. That's when you're supposed to play your raid cards. Now he's trying to get his hand size down so that Hazoret can attack. And he just has 1 energy right now, 0 on Jeremy's side.
Looks like a second Hazoret is in the hand for Krempels, who's deciding which card to discard.
So shoots upstairs, Jeremy down to 13, and yeah, he got his hand down to just 1 card. Hazoret will swing. She comes across for 5. Jeremy's options are to go to 8 or to chump block with this Chupacabra. Not great choices for Jeremy Henry.
Yeah, with Krempels still at 17.
Spectacular players. Pairings for the next round are on the way.
You kind of want to just maintain all these creatures so you can make an attack. Hope to have some answer or at least a chump blocker for the Hazoret on the following turn. 8 is a pretty precarious life total, though.
Good news for Jeremy, though. His teammate, Lucas Michaels, 2-0 winner over Brendan McCarley in the Modern match.
Well, Dredge took down Tron.
And this game's still looking pretty close. We see Jeremy down to 8. Looks like he took the hit off Hazoret. He's going to try to race here. Draws Botanical Sanctum. There's not much help.
Yeah. Botanical Sanctum and the Spell Pierce in his hand, not doing him any favors.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of this race.
I believe the 3rd card is a Jade Light Ranger.
Well, that's not bad here, actually.
Yeah, that can get in front of the Hazoret, could clean any lands off the top of his deck.
And we may get to a spot where this Hash Up Oasis matters.
Yeah. It'll be a few turns, but yeah, it has 3 points to the clock.
Here is Jade Light Ranger. Jeremy's going to have to take a damage from the Hash Up Oasis, though, and go to 7.
So, with the way he spent his energy earlier, he would be at 5 had he been using the Oasis. So, getting rid of a little bit.
Draws Botanical Sanctum off the first Explore. The second one finds another Jade Light Ranger. Now Jeremy has to decide if he actually wants that.
I think he needs higher impact. I think he needs to draw something like Vraska's Contempt or Hostage Taker.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, any creature on top is a chump blocker. Hazoret will shoot 2 damage upstairs, attack, and then that will be lethal. So here is a full swing of everything that it can for Jeremy. So Servant is a 3/3, Rishkar is a 3/3, Chupacabra is a 2/2. It's a swing for 8. Craig looks like he's going to make the... He's debating if he wants to chump his 1/1 away. He'll go to 9 on this attack.
The runner is likely not doing anything better than chump blocking. The one exception is if Craig draws Path of Metal. Being able to trigger that right away would certainly be beneficial for Craig here. And so Craig just decides to take it, likely because he wants to have Path of Metal be a very alive draw.
So Craig goes to 9.
It's a spell. I don't know if it was a good one. I think it might have been a second rigging runner.
Anything that he can cast is okay here.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to discard a second Hazoret. That'll shoot Jeremy down to 5. So Hazoret's lethal. She'll swing. Jeremy's play is pretty forced here.
Yeah.
He'll block.
Chooses not to take lethal damage.
Another rigging runner for Craig. Now an issue here for Jeremy is he actually only has 8 points of damage. He's really short right here.
Craig has 2 blockers.
Yeah. He does need, I think as you're mentioning, that Vraska's Contempt. So despite putting Jade Light Ranger in the graveyard, it looks like he draws a 3rd copy.
Yikes. And because Craig now had discarded that second Hazoret, the Contempt would have been an even better top deck, but
yeah.
It just didn't show up.
Hasn't shown up yet. Jeremy's going through as many cards as he can to try to find it. See him talking with his teammates a bit here. He needs to still keep some amount of attacks.
Yeah, you're not going to win the game by chump blocking. Makes sense to hang the Chupacabra back because it just gets eaten by the 2/2 rigging runner, though when you attack with your 3/3s, Craig can just double block. You might use the Hasp Oasis to attack with a large creature, but even if you make that play, then Craig just chump blocks with the 1/1 rigging runner. And the way it lines up, Jeremy just does not have particularly good attacks. I think you probably just start with the Jade Light Ranger. See if you can find something that makes a good plan for next turn.
That wall of first strike becoming an issue. Spell Pierce on top.
Bin that.
Bin. No, we already have one of those. Deathgorge Scavenger. That's good. I don't know if it's good enough.
Yeah, it's okay. It can't really do more than gain 4 life because the first time it attacks, it runs into that rigging runner. So if you gain life, it doesn't get the +1/+1.
At some point, if he assembles enough 3-power attackers, he just gets to alpha swing. I don't know. It's not there.
He just doesn't have time.
Yeah. Plays Botanical Sanctum, tapped, no good attack, so he passes back. Going to pass back to Krempels here, I imagine.
Craig would be pretty thrilled to draw a Glorybringer here.
Yeah, he's just looking at the teammate and said, hey, my only attack is swing with everything. So he says no, calls him off it. See Lucas Michaels talking there. So back to Craig. Of course, every draw is 2 points of damage, and perhaps even better, we see On-Crop Crasher the pickup.
That one really doesn't break through with this many blockers. It might be good enough to cast and hang back.
Well, if you cast it and exert it and attack, Jeremy does have to block it, probably. It will just trade with one of his things. That's not... It simplifies the board, which I think is something he's interested in. Jeremy could let it through and go to 2, and then he has to win on the next turn because Hazard will kill him.
I suppose when you exert with it, then it's kind of a removal spell. Obviously, Craig can't just attack with all of his creatures, so those runners, they're going to hang back.
Yeah, I think I'm into just casting it. You don't even have to exert, I suppose. Just swing.
Yeah, you're right.
I think in Craig's situation, he's at 9 health. 9 life. And the way that he loses is if Jeremy can put together some sort of very strong attack. So any sort of trading, any sort of simplification of the board is in his advantage.
Right. And currently, all Henry's creatures, they have 3 or less toughness.
Exactly.
This is a game that Henry probably could win if you could activate Hash of Oasis at instant speed. That is a sorcery speed ability. See it in a lot of decks actually right now. I almost never see it activated. Early recovered Ted Felicetti and Merfolk. He wasn't even playing Oasis.
Craig confirming said, I think with talking with McCarley, says, I think I want to exert on the Chupacabra. What are your thoughts?
Everything else is a 3 or a 4 power creature, so that makes some sense.
Yeah, so he will attack, exert, target the Chupacabra.
The Hazoret's for sure going to eat something better than the Chupacabra.
Yep.
So that works out.
Yeah, so the hope here is that just Jeremy loses 2 creatures, and it's okay if Craig loses 1.
Mm-hmm.
You get this much power off the board, and the advantage is that Jeremy's swing back just doesn't really add up to 9. So now Jeremy's just on the line of drawing removal for Hazoret.
Right. Yeah, after these blocks, Jeremy would still only have 8 power with the Oasis. That's not enough, and Craig has the 2 chump blockers anyway.
And that said, though, Hostage Taker or Vraska's Contempt would likely get this game for Jeremy. Both 3/3s will be the blockers, so Jade Light Ranger survives.
This is going to be an important draw step for Jeremy.
Does not have too many draw steps left. Picks up something green.
Is that the desert?
It might be a Verdurous Gearhulk. It's been a while since we've seen that card.
Yeah, you don't see too much of it right now. It's
well, it blocks Hazoret.
fine. You can make it into a 6 itself and then put some counters elsewhere.
You know, I kind of just want to make it an 8/8. Blocks Hazoret. The next turn you hash up Oasis.
Yeah, that's trample.
Yeah, just big. Here's Verdurous Gearhulk. I go all of it on itself. We're going to crash through with the biggest trampler you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not the biggest you've ever seen, but a big one. It'll be 11.
Yeah, you might put 1 counter on the Ranger so the Ranger can attack this turn.
Yeah, that
I don't know how
might,
much of a difference that makes, but it is reasonable.
That might be better. You're right. That's actually almost certainly better.
Yeah. Yeah. A different, more aggressive line would be to make the Chupacabra and the Ranger large, and you could make a big attack this turn. The Gearhulk should be at least a 6/6 though, so it can get in front of the Hazoret.
Yeah, so he went 2-1-1. Saying instead of 3 on the Gearhulk, he put 1 on the Chupacabra. That doesn't mean it can win combat against either of the rigging runners.
Yeah.
A swing here from Jade Light Ranger. The creature is now a 5/4. Looks like Craig's just going to chump block with his 1/1. That'll play. This Gearhulk, though, that was a good draw. Go over Jeremy. Spell Pierce still up. And Aetherhub for Krempels is no help. If Craig does not win this game, if Jeremy Henry wins this, that's the end of it. His teammate Lucas Michaels has already won the match in Modern.
Yeah. Craig does have the luxury of hanging back with the Hazoret, and it does have 4 toughness to soak up this trample damage.
See, Jeremy picks up Winding Constrictor. A little late.
Right. So if you Oasis up, you get a 9/9 trampling Gearhulk. Hazoret jumps in front, that punches through for 5, and the Rigging Runner is going to block your 5-power creature. You only get 3 more with the Chupacabra. And you can't really put the Oasis on either of the other creatures because they don't have trample and they wouldn't break through.
Right, so that trample damage I'm going to look up Hashep Oasis here. Would put Craig to 4. The question is then, would Jeremy's next attack as an Alpha Strike be lethal? He's got to be careful, right? Because he's already at 5. Craig has 1 card in hand. So Jeremy really only gets 2 attacks to win the game. If he waits, he can't do it in 3.
Right.
Does he have the mana to do Hashep Oasis and Winding Constrictor? They have to look at that.
I'm interested in Oasising up the Gearhulk, attacking with Gearhulk in passing turn, and hoping that Craig just bricks.
Yes. On its surface, I think that's the play.
Yeah, if you attack with the Gearhulk without Oasising, you have to send in something else. Otherwise, Craig gets a double block, the Hazoret survives, and the Gearhulk does not make it to the next turn.
Sure.
That might be fine. But then you do have a couple non-lethal creatures, and Craig can still just hang back with the Hazoret and get in front of them. Yeah, from 5, he for sure can't use the Oasis for green mana. He has no energy. I think he does have the setup to Constrictor and Oasis, though.
Yeah, he has
There's
3
green
greens.
sources.
Yep. So he can do this exactly, and his teammates showing him, yep, hey, here's your Oasis mana, there's your Constrictor mana. Means Spell Pierce is down.
Rats.
Yeah, it's been so good this game.
Craig can't resolve any 4-mana spells. I guess Chandra, but that doesn't deal 3 damages, depending on how Jeremy attacks here. But on his face, it only does 2.
All right, Hashep Oasis on the Verdurous Gearhulk. And this game's now decide everything. Joe Brennan has 1 in Legacy, and Jeremy's swinging the team. So the Gearhulk's a 9/9. It has to be blocked. It's 9 power of Trample. So if it's not blocked by Hazoret, then he dies. So Hazoret has to block that. 5's going to trample over.
The Rigger has to chump block as well, otherwise Craig loses.
All right. And then
and Jeremy gets to make a chump blocker for the Hazoret.
Yeah, there's just 1 blocker now, though, with Jeremy at 3. Craig now he's left himself dead to 1 removal spell. Let's see if he can do it. Craig, here's the draw. Path of Metal, does that do it?
No.
No.
Yeah, that's going to be game.
I don't think so.
Doesn't destroy any of these creatures. Certainly not Winding Constrictor. Like, I guess it's the one that's closest to destroying.
Hazoret cannot throw. No, there's no way to do it.
Yep.
He's short.
It's only 2 damage.
He'll swing. His teammates as we're blocking. And Craig extends the hand. So Jeremy Henry, he's going to get this one in 3. The team of William Lowe, Lucas Michaels, and Jeremy Henry, they are your winners here, down to the wire in Standard.
Yeah, that was a really close game.